आजकल लोगों को बहुत बोलने की आदत हो गई है। खुद पहले देख लो आप कितने पानी में हो, फिर बात करो। यू कैन नॉट बी नेगेटिव अनलेस यू आर इनसिक्योर और स्कैर्ड और afraid or unhappy. So if so much negativity is coming out, I mean, it really reflects how the inner world of those people is very, very sad.
The environment of film criticism and celebrity is not taking it lightly has gone on for several years. What was restricted to articles and stars in newspapers has transitioned to video formats on YouTube, creators giving their perspective about films, praise being lapped up by most producers and used as a means of marketing, and harsh and unfavorable reviews either being ignored or being called out as creators not being equipped enough to give their perspective. Recently, Shia Kapoor sat with Sonal Kapoor from the Hindustan Times and gave his perspective on trolling on social media and whether or not he gets affected by the same. Remember the key word being trolls and not constructive criticism. This is why Shahid Kapoor said that everyone has a voice in this day and age and they do not fear repercussions. Going further on to say on how back in the day people would not be able to even open their mouth in front of big artists and how one should stay in their lane, understand their औकात कि वो कितने पानी में हैं and then speak. You know what this gives out? This gives out the worst way to have an argument because this is like saying तू कौन है? Whenever someone says something of value or is straight up trolling, if your defense for that is तू कौन है, I think you've lost the argument already. While I do agree with Kapoor's stance on everyone having a voice and saying the most nasty things under the protection of anonymity, it especially is not a good look for an actor to tell someone to stay in their lane before they are critical of anyone or anything. This is the same argument that people have with film criticism. Why don't you go out and make a movie first? Then we'll see. You go out to a restaurant and criticize the half-cooked food, and the defense of the restaurant owner to the customer cannot be to stay in your औकात or be only allowed to criticize something if they were a seasoned chef. It's true that the presence of the internet has led to the democratization of voices, and with that comes the good, bad, and the ugly. And the moment you start monitoring each voice that comes out in this environment, then you're going to be fighting a losing battle. What comes with the trade of anything being put out there in the public is praise, criticism, and trolling. And when someone seeks for censorship or someone in a position of power telling someone to think twice before they say something, trust me, they are going to just double down and make the trolling even more effective. You don't want to fight the internet. It's always a losing battle. I think while Shahid's stance on trolls getting emboldened and saying anything and everything may be true, I think also the actor has just a chip on his shoulder projecting in this regard because the great work that he does not translate into monetary success. I think there have been many times where I have defended Shahid under the garb of being the underdog or being shortchanged regarding the credit for his movies, but I can empathize and understand why there is an irritation that almost permeates in his stance, for he feels like he is always going wrong with his film choices, leading to calling out what is the easiest target, the trolls or the critics. There have been many times where actors have called out critics for their stance on movies. The interesting aspect of the interviews in which the celebrities bash the critics is that it is sometimes for extremely poor movies that are panned across the board and fail commercially too. This was the case of Salman Khan when he was promoting Veer, a movie for which he had really invested a lot, both monetarily and creatively, but the product itself was mediocre and extremely messy from a screenplay POV. The movie and its reception was so lukewarm that there were consistent articles on how Salman and the director were not on the same page on how the movie eventually turned out. In an interview with Bollywood Hungama, Salman Khan spoke about his stance regarding film critics and the way they are dragging the movie upon its release.
If you see the film alone, कहीं ना कहीं एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आ जाती है, अपने आप को चौधरी समझते हैं, हालांकि किसी ने एक पिक्चर बनाई भी नहीं है, पिक्चर की समझ भी नहीं है उनको, एक पोस्ट मिल गया, एक जगह मिल गई है तो वो लिखते जाते हैं जो उनके मन में आता है, what they feel.
In Salman's criticism for critics, there is one aspect of his stance that I fully resonate with, and that is the case of watching movies by paying for your own tickets on the day of the release.
जाओ पैसे खर्च करो, दो आम आदमी पैसे खर्च कर देखता ना, आप फैंस, आपको क्या लिबर्टी है?
This is a stance that has been kept by a production company like YRF for years and has been implemented by Dharma Productions as well recently. Critics often feel like they need a 24-hour cycle to at least write a cohesive piece on the movie, but Salman believes that critics should not be given freebies in the form of previews and should spend their money on the movie, for at least then to have some entitlement in criticizing the movie because you spent your own money. This is what I definitely agree with. Defending a movie like Veer though is a huge stretch.
I've been getting text messages from fans saying, "ये मेरे दद्दा की तलवार, फिरंगियों के लिए नहीं, क्रिटिक्स की गर्दनों के लिए है।
Varun Dhawan has been in the news for the excessive trolling that he has been receiving for Border 2. Thankfully, a lot of the trolling were merely jokes, and I think it was rather hilarious that the producer of the film, Nidhi Datta, stated in an interview that whoever is criticizing Border 2 actually is an anti-national. A new defense for any movie with some nationalistic fervor. Be even marginally critical of the film and be labelled an enemy of the state. Varun, however, was graceful in this environment of getting trolled left, right and centre for his crooked smirk. But where his defense was absolutely weak was when he called out critics after the reception of Bawal, a movie which tried to empathize with Hitler and created a parallel between a tumultuous marriage and the experience of Jews in a concentration camp, was rightfully being called out for its tone-deaf writing. But Varun defended the movie by stating how critics don't call out South Indian movies that have problematic themes and did not even mention the Bhagavad Gita sequence from Oppenheimer as problematic.
For certain dubbed films, I'm saying, which come here in Hindi. That time when you're reviewing their films, why don't you see the misogyny? But when we have it, you want to see misogyny, you want to see a lot of issues, you want to point it out. You can't have a different yardstick to measure everyone.
First, I think Varun should be introduced to the Matlab Kuch Bhi series on the channel, and second, the defense of your movie and its elements cannot have the strawman approach of referencing problematic themes of other movies. Defend your movies and its elements versus just referencing other films and its flaws. Shah Rukh Khan has often been called out by critics for his performances, and when he sat with Komal Nahata for his show on ETC, he referenced how anyone and everyone is a critic now.
पिछले साल थोड़ा सा नाराज रहता था क्रिटिक से, नाराज मतलब बुरा लगता था अगर बुरा कह दे कोई मुझको। इस साल मुझे इतनी खुशी है उन सबसे मिलके, क्योंकि अब हर तीसरा आदमी मुझे घर में, मैं 7वें वाले पे रहता हूँ, जब नीचे आ रहा होता हूँ मेरे घर में 3-4 मिल गए मुझे critics.
This is true and a valid stance to have, but it absolutely undermines the reason why people prefer the nature of social media today versus decades ago. The narrative of how a movie is perceived was only dictated by a select few who were hired by media channels. I think the nature of social media has actually allowed for varied voices to appear versus only the flag bearers of film criticism, who, by the way, I must tell you on a personal front, are quite annoyed by the fact that YouTubers are watched more in this environment. Shah Rukh's stance over here transitioned to become quite bitter, especially when he specifically calls out an established film critic regarding the conflict of interest that appears due to the relationships they share with the industry.
कितने सारे प्रोड्यूसर डायरेक्टर हैं उनकी बीवियां हैं क्रिटिक, तो ये लाइक अरे यार, मतलब there has to be some kind of a righteousness to this. कि how are you a critic when your business is films.
Sandeep Wanga is notorious for calling out critics for what they have to say about his movies. I love the conviction of Wanga and how he defends his movies, but it was quite hilarious as someone who does content around movies, because as soon as you are about to do a piece on it, Sandeep would be calling out another artist or critic for what they said about his movie and go on further to say that he doesn't care at all.
Rajiv Masandia.
Yeah, okay.
He reviewed my film and he gave 2. So audience gave 200 crore plus by now.
The tide had passed and the rage that was Animal came out, and Sandeep had new critics to fight against. Not only critics, artists too, like Javed Akhtar and Kiran Rao.
आमिर खान को पूछो कि खंबे जैसी खड़ी है लड़की या फुलझड़ी है, वो क्या था?
When he was producing मिर्जापुर, पूरा दुनिया भर में जितना गालियां है ना, वो मिर्जापुर एक शो में है.
I like how Sandeep defends his movies, but oftentimes, rather than defending the movie and its elements, it often transitions to personal jabs of the other person's filmography versus specifically talking about the scenes that are being called out. I must also tell you though, it's crazy on the number of people who had a problem with Animal and the boot licking scene who had not even seen the film. I remember being called on a panel to discuss Animal, which I could not attend, and when I saw the discussion go live, 3 out of the 5 panelists had not seen the film, which I believe is a sin for any film discussion. Abhay Deol has been very vocal about his stance on several facets of the film industry, of being sidelined in major award shows, of the oppressive manner in which music labels function, of just the politics he had to deal with while dealing with directors he worked with. Similarly, Abhay was candid in calling out the problematic aspects of journalism too, when he was asked to comment about blind items and how they adversely affect the lives of celebrities, specifically calling out Rajiv Masand on how his articles really did a lot of damage to the mental health of some celebrities.
While Rajiv Masand talks about producers selling out making formula films, he goes around writing blind items. I mean, there's no journalistic integrity to that. So I find the hypocrisy a little little jarring.
I think by far the weakest defense for film criticism was when Arjun Kapoor spoke about the issue he had with people calling him out for his look in Panipat. Playing the role of Sadashiv Rao Bhav, Arjun Kapoor stated that criticism levied on his look or even his performance is an extension of being critical of the person he is portraying, and how it is offensive to call it out as it is disrespectful to the historical figure, which I think is a very weak argument for any role being defended.
So in that imagery, when you crack jokes on Arjun Kapoor, what happens is somewhere you're also discrediting the character I'm playing.
This almost creates the precedent that for any historical epic made or any biopic made on a person with nationalistic importance, one should refrain from even criticizing the actor in the role because it extends to making fun of the historical figure. A poor tactic in my opinion to protect yourself from being called out or exposed. One of my favorite filmmakers, as you all know, is Milap Zaveri, an absolutely confident filmmaker who has made gems like Satyamev Jayate 1, Satyamev Jayate 2, Masti Zade and Masti 4, and the epitome of toxic pugloos like Ek Deewane Ki Deewaniyat. When it was rumored that Vidyut Jamwal and Tiger Shroff may be featuring in a movie together that will be directed by Milap Zaveri, I posted a laughing emoji on Twitter as I had a year ago wanted these two actors to feature in a movie together. Of course, wondering who will direct. I of course posted the laughing emoji when Milap was rumored to be directing this movie. Not an ideal choice for me personally. Milap of course did not like me laughing at the matter and replied back to my tweet stating his lists of hits and how disconnected I am from reality. I wonder if that project even materializes in the future because I am very curious about what the creators do with both Tiger and Vidyut in the same frame. I think in all the criticism that is levied at Rajiv Masand, I think I will never forget his iconic moment he clapped back at Sonam Kapoor, who has again been very vocal about critics and how deeply misinformed they are regarding their stance on movies. In a post-success roundtable interview with Rajiv Masand, Sonam stated on how people who have a problem with Veere Di Wedding are mostly men, while most people are enjoying the movie.
You know, the movie now is out and different people will have different opinions.
1%. That's it. Or two. And they both men.
Yeah.
This immediately brought me back to the moment where Sonam had been irritated about the fact on how critics are so uneducated and illiterate with their stance on films and actors, to which Masand had an insane and fast comeback that had me rooting for him in the back and forth.
Don't they have schools for critics?
I'm sure they do, just like they have schools for acting and so many people don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Lastly, I must say that you have all seen me talk about the esteemed award-winning actor and critic KRK and how essential he is to the ecosystem of the film industry. And I think he may have seen some of my videos, and deeply locked in my DMs on Twitter exists his only reply, which I think is the only way he can handle criticism. I think the silver lining of this entire discussion, especially for critics, is that if you can dish it, have the cojones to deal with it when it comes back at you too. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below whether you have some video ideas for our channel. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.